Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session
with your host, Michael Rearden.
I think it was maybe a week or two ago, I talked about the idea of physical and mental damage. And it was a blog article. And I wanted to extrapolate some of the things I said there and talk about the difference between despair and mindset, because there is going to be a correlation to what happens with the mental damage, but not so much of the physical damage yet. Because the physical damage is going to be the deterioration essentially for or from us not taking action with the physical and mental damage. Now, the physical also talked about an injury, like an injury happening to us, whether it be from someone else or maybe even from ourselves. That physical injury typically would heal, right? Almost automatically. But when it comes to the mind, the mental damage that mind has to deal with, it is often not automatic. Now, they say time heals all wounds, but there's still going to be a trauma that is there. That is how you can go to a therapist, and the therapist is like, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about how your parents treated you. When you start to go down those avenues of emotion, of your past, and of maybe even past traumas, if you want to call them that, you might say, whoa, I have so much unhealed things within me. It's no wonder why I'm a mess. Now, this is not only to say that we need to go into our past all the time and say, let me fix all the things that were broken, right? I like to say that your past essentially are the pillars that you are going to utilize as your foundation. Now, I understand some of those pillars are not in the best shape. Some have cracks, some are chipping, some are made with paper mache and literally should not be a foundation, but they help to build you to the person that you are today. What you do essentially now is you don't get rid of the foundations all the time. Sometimes you say that these foundations need more support. So if you have a feeling of inadequacy, that foundation of that you were building on in high school or maybe elementary school, hopefully not elementary school, but yeah, you need to look at what pillars can counterweight or counterbalance this feeling of inadequacy. Well, I'm going to look at being more confident. I'm going to look at, being this boisterous type of person. I'm going to look at being a go-getter. I'm going to look at figuring out what I can do to elevate myself every single day. Maybe the accumulation of those things is going to be something you say, you know what, that's good, right? This is good. Now my foundation is supported, even though I had that insecurity there, right? I was once insecure, but now I'm surrounded by all of the good pillars. I'm surrounded by all the good foundations. Typically, you're not going to just say, my foundation is terrible, and you're going to just get brainwashed or hypnotized and say, you know what, I am not going to remember this. It is good to remember those feelings of inadequacy, or the feelings of bad or challenge, because it's going to help elevate you. It's going to be that driver for us. Most people right now, if they're in a comfortable position, most likely they're not trying. Most people, when it came to, ending the New Year's, is now March. People are like, hey, I did really good in the beginning, but I'm in a comfortable spot right now. Maybe you lost 5 pounds, 10 pounds, but you're not going to keep that up. You're going to gain all that weight back. You're going to go right back to your comfortable habits. You're going to find yourself in bed more when you should be in the gym. You should find yourself looking at, social medias and stuff when you should be reading books. This is the difference in how a mindset can grow and prosper and how a mindset can fall into despair. Because there's two ways despair can happen. It could be a slow, steady decline, or it could be you got Spartan kicked off the cliff. All right. And now you're falling and you're careening to the bottom. You're like, oh my goodness, I need a parachute. Oh my goodness, I need to figure out how I can save myself before I splat and hit the bottom. Now, despair is a heavy emotion. It's very similar to regret in the sense of this does not feel good. Now, regret has two forms also. It could be soft and light, and it could be heavy and a burden. The soft and light stuff is like, oh, I wish I invested in Google. Oh, I wish I invested in Amazon. But, those things are going to be light. They're going to be something you forget, right? It's just kind of like, oh man, it would have been nice if I did that instead, or Bitcoin, right? Whatever. But then the burdens that are going to be heavy, I wish I spent more time with my family and not work so much. And now I'm on my deathbed. That's a heavy burden. Can't change that. I wish I didn't drink and drive. That's a heavy burden. Maybe you got in a car accident, you killed someone. You can't reverse that. It's a heavy burden. It's regret. Despair is very similar to that regret. We are looking at despair oftentimes as a feeling of deep sadness or a deep uncomfort. And we say, I'm despairing. I'm in a state of despair. But the reality is, you are the person that has to get out of that despair. No one's coming to save you. There's no light at the end of the tunnel if you have your eyes closed. You have to open your eyes. You have to embrace the darkness, essentially. And you have to say, I want to get out of this despair. We have to figure out when we are getting out of this despair, how do we get here? Because if it was a slow, steady decline, let's look at that first. The slow, steady decline despair, type of despair, is something that you are almost unknowingly heading in toward. Now, there's going to be cues and there's going to be feelings that are going to come into your life. I feel stuck. I feel like, things are not getting better. My living situation is getting worse. I'm more fearful. There's all of these things now compiling on your mind. Now your mindset is like, whoa, what's happening? We were once in a good situation and now we're here. How did we get here? And so you have to figure out, what was that first feeling that you felt, the second feeling, the third feeling, and every subsequent feeling, and then you reverse engineer it. Well, let's look at why we are in this living situation, right? Are we spending too much? Are we not making enough now? I understand the prices have gone up, so we need to increase our income. How much, right? How much? Have you done a budget? So we do the things that need to be done. I know sometimes we close our eyes and we hope that the boogeyman doesn't get us, but the boogeyman is still going to be there. Closing your eyes is not going to stop the danger. It's not going to stop the bad guy. You have to have your eyes open and almost primed and focused, ready to take action, looking at every microsecond and saying, hey, this is my next step. And you need to make sure that you have not only the mindset, the skill, but then also the bodily function to do it. Because when it comes to fear, most people are immobilized by their fear. Despair can immobilize you. In a sense, fear and despair can have the same negative effects on the body and the mind. So we need to figure out how we can get out of that slowly. So we look at our situation. Maybe we look at the fears that we're feeling. Maybe we look at, this inception of feeling stuck, right? Is it career? Is it relationship? Depending on you, because I can't just say, hey, we need to focus on our career. We need to focus on a relationship. You need to look at your situation that got you to this steady decline fear, right? You're taking a step to that despair, right? It's not going to lead to a good life. This happens with drugs, right? It could be, hey, I'm doing marijuana. Hey, I'm doing cocaine. Hey, I'm doing fentanyl. And now I'm on the streets, right? It could be that, that's like a step-by-step process. I'm not saying that if you smoking marijuana or something like that, because I know there's states that have legalized it, that your life is going to fall into despair. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there are people who can have that be their despair, where they started something and they finally got down to the point where now they're at that point where things are not good. They're uncomfortable. They're living in not a good situation. And every single day is a fight for their life. It's a fight for purpose. It's a fight for, if I'm going to get out of the situation, or is someone going to come save me? Now, despair, like I said, not many people are going to save the despaired. I understand there's a religious and spiritual aspect to being saved, that God will come save me. God will look out for me. And of course, if you have that belief, if you have that, this concept of religion and spirituality, of course, lean into that, because there is a power in leaning into a higher power. But for the majority of people who are the main proponent and they understand that they are the proponent that's going to either make them or break them in life, they have to get out of that despair themselves. Now, again, there's tools. You can use religion as a tool. You can use journaling as a tool. You can use life coaching and mindset coaching as a tool. You can Figure out what tools you need in order to build your way up, scaffold your way back up from the bottom, to build the staircase that you need in order to get back to, a good place in your life. I say don't even stop there. Build yourself up to someone better. Because despair can be a great thing. It could be a place where you're like, whoa, I have so far to go, but let me start the process. And when I'm starting the process, let me not stop the process. For the people who stop the process, it's easier for them to say, you know what? I don't want to restart. But for the people who never stop and don't give up, man, those people are going to be making it, making it, making it. And you're going to wonder, like, how in the world are these people just keep on going, right? Of course, you take rest days, weeks, months, maybe even years, but you do not make it a lifetime habit because you will fall right back into that despair. If you have fell down that staircase before, it's possible that you're going to fall down again. So we figure out what works, what doesn't work. We avoid the things that got us to those staircases that were leading downhill, that were leading down. And we say, we're not going in that direction anymore. Of course, eventually we're going to get rid of all those habits that are going to lead us there because not everyone has hundreds and thousands of bad habits. It's typically just those few. You stay up too late on your phone, right? You are judging yourself and comparing yourself with other people. You are abusing substances and drugs or something. You are not getting adequate amounts of sleep, right? You have a very negative demeanor and bias toward other people. I mean, all of these different things are going to compound, and eventually you're going to give yourself a lot more good things. And you're going to say, I'm going to focus on the good things. Well, that's the steady decline. But how about the people who are thrown into despair, almost unknowingly? This is going to be something that's more abrupt. And it's actually an easier mindset fix than I think for the people who have to make their way step by step up. Because there is not so much of time separating you from the despair. Because despair could have happened to you yesterday. You got in a car accident, you lost a limb, you lost a loved one, whatever it be, right? You lost something, right? You're in a state of despair. You're like, man, I lost it. Lost my wife. I lost my house. I lost my dog. I lost everything, right? It's a very tough place to be in because the mental damage that has happened to it is so blunt and so abrupt. It's like you got a concussion. It's like you can't focus. So now you have to get clear. But it is easier to get clear when you can look at what you were yesterday and what you are today, and then what you would like to be tomorrow versus of what have I become these past 5 years. It's a lot more to unpackage there. It's a lot more to unbundle. So we look at the idea now. If I'm thrown into despair automatically, car accident, death in the family, like I said, right? Whatever that despair is, you are going to be there for a bit, about maybe a month, maybe to 3 6 months, typically most. You figure out what you need to do to get out. If you decide to wallow in that despair, that is a decision. I'm not saying that you should not wallow in that despair. I think that feeling a great deep sadness is extremely human. So when something happens in your life, you might shed tears, you might cry, you might throw yourself in a dark room, isolate yourself because you're trying to navigate through these feelings and these emotions. They're new feelings and emotions. You might have lost people before, but you didn't lose that person that you just lost. Because you could have lost a dad, you could have lost a brother, a sister, mom, grandma, grandpa, whoever. But grandma's not grandpa, and mom's not dad, and my sister's not my brother, and my cousin is not my best friend. So all of these different people are different people. So there's different feelings. Now, I'm not saying that you love anyone more or less. They're feelings of loss, of grief, and maybe even falling all the way to despair. When it comes to those abrupt despairs, we have to begin to work immediately. Now, when I say immediately, typically it's more so of we begin the process. You can still stay in despair, but we are working on getting out. The best way I have found to get out of that abrupt type of fear is to surround yourself with growth-minded content. Growth-minded content, what is that? Self-help books, psychological books like psychology, books written by therapists, typically talking about feelings and emotions. Typically, we want to journal. Typically, we want to meditate. We want to document how we're feeling, and then also document how we would like to feel again. Right? So we're literally giving the brain a path. We're saying, "Hey, I'm giving you all of these resources. Let's build something." Because as I said, when we take that, those steps down to despair, typically we have to build some new steps back up to where we were or even better. When we get kicked off, Spartan kicked into this huge abyss, essentially, of unhappiness and despair, what do? We need to start building. We need to build good habits once more. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to the gym anymore. I'm not saying that you're not eating. Sometimes those things can kind of take a back burner. I understand. But we do need to, again, give ourselves the resources and then from there build. And I encourage you not to do it by yourself when you are thrown into despair. If you knew something was coming, again, that's easier to take the steps to get back versus if you are like, I'm thrown into this, let me figure this out by myself. Now, of course, you can leverage a mentor, someone who can, guide you along the way, life coach, whoever, therapist. They can guide you whether you took the steps or you got thrown into it. It's just that if you get help sooner, you're going to get out a lot quicker. All right. Because someone can throw a ladder down, right? Because you ask, hey, I need some help. You get a trainer, you get, a life coach. So, you get a therapist, you start talking about things. You're going to be in a better place within the 3 to 6 month span versus if you did it by yourself, you're going to be looking at 8 to 9 months to even get back to where you were. So we can save a minimum of 5 months of this feeling of inadequacy. How does this happen? And it happens literally. Emotions almost have a time limit because how long can you cry? How many tears can you shed? How long can you be angry? Get a stopwatch. Next time you're angry, stopwatch. And then stop it when you're not angry anymore. Okay? At some point you're going to say, whatever. I'm over it. And that is what happens to most emotions. They come and they go. Happiness is the same thing. Happiness lasts for what, 90 seconds or maybe 90 minutes or whatever it be, depending on the person. So emotions are only meant to last 90 seconds. So if you are ruminating on something, that emotion is literally on replay, replay, replay. You need to break the loop, break the cycle, give yourself another film. That's why another person can be that film. Hey, maybe they're on a different loop. Let me watch what they're doing. And it's not so much that you're watching to emulate, but you're watching to understand that this film that I'm currently living was not my film prior. However, if I have a 5-year long film to look at, it's going to take a lot longer to go through it. So that's why people typically who are falling into that, that step by step, it could be drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. They have a lot longer journey, right? And they have a lot more relapses because they're like trying to make the way up and the journey is so long. Most people, they look at how far they have to go than how far they've come. So then they're like, whoa, I don't want to do all this work. That's why I say it's easier if you fall into despair to get out. Of course, you can get help both ways, but you are the main proponent at the end of the day. You have to be the person that says, I'm going to invest in, a life coach, or I'm going to invest in a therapist. I'm going to invest time in going to these AA meetings. I'm going to do what they say. This is something that you have to do. Of course, there's going to be people who want to guide you and help you along the way. Essentially, you are the main proponent. You can go home and you can drink and you can come into the meeting and lie, but everyone there is going to know. They can see what's happening. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. I don't think a person who's in despair is a bad person. You have to, understand that in life, there's going to be these moments of deep darkness. It's like you have day and you have night. Night's going to come even if you don't want it. Of course, there's certain parts in the world you can go to, and there's always sun, and you can, rotate where you go. So there's always sun. Maybe you say, I'm going to focus on the dark, and I'm only going to go to places that's dark. You're Batman or something. I was like, I wouldn't want you to do that because you need 5 minutes of sun every single day, number one. And then, of course, they talk about, the least amount of, people who get sun exposure, how they're more depressed because sun is making the vitamin D. And we need this in our life, right? So if we're not getting a minimum 5 minutes of sun a day, right, we got some problems. So, how do we get out of despair? And we need to get out of our situation. We need to get out of our hole. And typically, if we're in our room, if we're isolated, we just need to get out. Have a friend, have a buddy take you out. And you might not be happy that you're out, right? But you're out. And you do it little by little. It doesn't have to be big. You can have a breakdown when you're out. You can not be the same old person that you were. And it's okay, right? Understand that that is your journey at the moment. And then you are going to just allow time to do what it does. But you need to get out. Go for a walk. Again, change your situation. Go to the library. Go to a movie, whatever. You have to keep doing different things because it is easy to kind of curl up into a ball, fetal position, and say, okay, no more. Leave me alone. Life doesn't leave you alone. Life is going to be there as long as you're here. And we get to choose. We get to make a choice. Do we happen in life or does life happen to us? If you are in a moment of despair or a time of despair, this is life happening to you. But then you get to get your payback. And the payback is going to be marvelous if you allow it to be. You get to happen once more to life. You get to show life what you want out of it. You get to create your meaning. You get to create fulfillment. You get to experience joy once more. So whatever you are feeling right now, whether it be a bundle of happiness, a bundle of sadness, whatever, maybe we can all go all the way down to despair. We can change our situation to something better because you could be happy right now, but I guarantee you could be happier, right? Joy doesn't have a cap. Just because I got a brand new house and a brand new car and I'm happy, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. I got this brand new stuff. What if I gave you some more money, right? What if I gave you, a better lifestyle, better health? Maybe you have like some ailments going on. And I said, you're healed now. Would you be in a better state? Yeah, of course. You're getting better. Things are coming and becoming better for you. They can always be better for you. I understand you can fall into that fixed mindset and say, things are not going to get better. Things are going to stay the same. But that is your lesser self talking. That's that despair talking. That's that negativity talking. We don't need it. We need you to be focused on the prime, what you can accomplish and what you will accomplish. So I always say you can go on that journey by yourself, but it's so much better with company. So recruit some friends. If you don't have friends that can be relied on in the sense of your journey and to get to a better life, lean on a life coach, a mentor, guide. If that's something that you can invest in right now, maybe a family member can help out. It could be a cousin, it could be a sibling, maybe even your parents. I understand sometimes, bringing family business into personal business might seem almost like, oh, I'm such a loser for asking for help. But you're not. You're actually maybe the bravest person I can say to be alive. Because if you can ask for help, then you understand that to be human is not to be by yourself. It's to, be in a community and to work in unison for better growth in your life. So reach out for help if you need help, but then understand that hand that you're reaching out was done because you decided to make a decision. You decided to make a change. You made the choice to ask for help because no one can try to grab your hand if you're leaning back with all your weight and resistance. They're not going to be able to lift you up. You have to want it. And when you make that initiative, that initial step, that spark, whatever, the inception of you wanting for something different, that is when people can come help you. That is when people can save you, essentially. But it's not going to just happen magically. So whether you're a magician or not, you have to say, okay, this is no magic. This is me. This is real. Become the proponent to the change that you want in your life, to a better mindset and to a better future. It is something that's within your grasp, and it's a simple decision. You can stay or you can leave. You can ask for help or try to fight uphill by yourself. Whichever path you take, understand the better future or the better destination awaits you.